Sparkles. Jimin tried to walk away. But Jungkook's back hug stopped his whole world. Loudly crying, face fire revolving, hearts don't take another step. Jungkook's voice cracked in the cold, vast rehearsal room, sharp enough to slice through the pounding bass still echoing from the speakers. Jimin froze mid-stride, breath trembling. Sweat trickled down the side of his face, not from dancing, but from the words he was trying, and failing, to swallow. The night's practice had ended in an argument so sudden and fierce that even the air felt bruised. Jungkook moved before thinking, instincts overriding pride. His arms wrapped around Jimin's waist from behind, strong, desperate, trembling with everything he hadn't said. Jimin stiffened, shoulders rising as if bracing for impact, but he couldn't take another step. Jungkook held him, not tightly, but with the kind of grip someone uses when they're terrified of losing something irreplaceable. The room was dim, only the city lights through the high windows casting long silver stripes across the floor. Jimin could feel Jungkook's breath on the back of his neck, uneven and too close, too honest. "Hyung, please don't walk away from me." The words landed like an earthquake under Jimin's ribs. Jimin squeezed his eyes shut. He hated how his chest softened at the tremor in Jungkook's voice. He hated how well Jungkook knew exactly where to touch, where to speak, where to stay silent. He hated, most of all, how this wasn't about anger at all. It was fear. And fear always made him run. "Jungkook, I can't do this right now," Jimin whispered. Not cold. Not distant. Just tired in a way that went bone deep. "You always say that." Jungkook's arms tightened, not to restrain him but as though he was trying to convince himself Jimin was still real, still here. "You shut down, avoid eye contact, and vanish before I can even understand what I did wrong." Jimin opened his eyes again, focusing on the floorboards beneath their feet, the tiny scratch in the wood from when Jungkook had dropped a light stand 2 months ago. He remembered laughing then, Jungkook's embarrassed face, the startled yelp, the sheepish smile. How easily they had been happy now. Even breathing felt like a negotiation. "It's not you," Jimin murmured, voice cracking so quietly Jungkook might have missed it if he weren't pressed right against him. "It's everything else." But Jungkook heard it. He heard the fracture. He always did. His forehead slowly lowered against Jimin's shoulder blade, and Jimin felt the tremble run through him. Jungkook only trembled when he was furious, terrified, or trying desperately not to cry. "Then let me in," Jungkook whispered. "I don't need perfect. I don't need you to have everything figured out. I just need you to stop shutting me out like I'm a stranger." The words sank into the silence, into the soft hum of the air conditioner, into the way Jimin's lips parted but no sound came out. He wanted to turn around. He wanted to melt into Jungkook like he always did when fear wasn't winning. He wanted to explain why he'd snapped earlier, why the pressure had been suffocating him, why he'd heard the director's harsh critique today and instantly blamed himself for holding everyone back. He wanted to tell Jungkook that the fear of disappointing him was somehow even heavier. But habits carved by years don't break in a single breath. "Jungkook," Jimin's voice broke before he could steady it. "I didn't walk away because I don't care. I walked away because I care too much and I don't know how to deal with it without ruining things." Jungkook's grip loosened, not to let go, but to gently turn Jimin around. His hands slid from waist to arms, up to shoulders, warm and grounding. When Jimin finally lifted his gaze, Jungkook was looking at him with eyes too honest, too dark, too full. "You're not ruining anything," Jungkook said, the line between anger and concern blurring into something raw. "You're hurting alone. And that's what's killing me." The confession hit Jimin like a slow, soft punch straight to the heart. Jimin's instinct was to look away, but Jungkook cupped his jaw, thumb brushing the edge of his cheekbone where tension had gathered like a knot. The touch was intimate in a way that made Jimin stop breathing. "You don't have to run," Jungkook whispered. "Not from me." For the first time tonight, Jimin didn't look away. His voice came out softer than he wanted, but more truthful than he expected. "What if I don't know how to stay?" Jungkook's eyes glimmered, something fierce sparking behind the pain. "Then I'll wait with you. I'll stand still until you're ready." The trembling in Jimin's chest unraveled, slow and reluctant, like a stubborn knot finally giving way. Outside, rain began tapping against the windows, a soft percussion matching the rhythm of their breaths. Inside, the tension didn't vanish, but it shifted, no longer sharp, no longer threatening to shatter them. Just heavy, shared, real. Jimin exhaled shakily, and Jungkook's forehead pressed briefly to his, the faintest touch, like a promise made in whispers. You talk like you're the strong one, Jimin murmured, a bittersweet smile tugging at his lips. But you break easier than you think. I break for the right people, Jungkook replied, and Jimin didn't need to ask who he meant. The room felt warmer now, quieter, not empty, but full of something fragile and new. Jimin didn't walk away. Jungkook didn't push further than Jimin could handle. They simply stood there, breathing the same air, holding the same fear, choosing, if only for tonight, not to run from each other. And for the first time in weeks, Jimin felt a strange, unfamiliar relief settle in his chest. Not peace. Not resolution, but the beginning of something honest. Something that didn't require cliffhanger, just two hearts learning, painfully and beautifully, how to stay. The rain hadn't stopped since that night. It poured over Seoul with an almost vengeful persistence, the kind that soaked through walls, clothes, and even silence. Jungkook stood outside the rehearsal building, a hood pulled low over his face, the echo of Jimin's words still burning in his chest. It used to be about love. Now it's just about what's left after. That line had chased him for days, haunting every stage light, every lyric he tried to write. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jimin's trembling hands gripping the mic, the same trembling that used to reach for him in the dark when the world was asleep. The next rehearsal was supposed to be routine, a pre-show run-through before the concert in Busan. Everyone was there, Namjoon giving quiet directions, Yoongi adjusting the in-ear mix, Hoseok teasing Seokjin to break the tension. And Jimin was standing at the far end of the stage, his back turned, stretching in silence. Jungkook watched him for too long again. The way Jimin rolled his shoulders, the small motion of his hand adjusting the wire of his mic, it all looked too careful, too deliberate, as if control was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Namjoon's voice cut through the air. Positions for asterisk still with you asterisk, he called. The irony didn't escape Jungkook. The song title felt like a curse. When the music started, the air inside the arena changed. Jungkook's voice carried the first line, smooth but heavy, and when Jimin's harmony joined, Jungkook almost lost his timing. Their voices met like they used to, too perfect, too close, and every note felt like an open wound being pressed halfway through. During the soft bridge, Jimin's gaze lifted. For the first time since that sound check, their eyes met in front of everyone. It wasn't planned. It wasn't performance. It was too real. Jungkook's breath caught. He forgot the next lyric. Just 1 second of eye contact, but it threw the entire rehearsal off rhythm. The music faltered, the band stumbled, and Namjoon's voice rose sharply, breaking the spell. Stop. Let's reset from the bridge. The others exhaled. But Jungkook didn't. He felt the air thin between them, like static. Jimin's expression didn't move. He just looked down at the floor, adjusting his earpiece as if nothing happened. When rehearsal ended, Jimin disappeared quickly. Jungkook followed without thinking, ignoring Namjoon calling after him. The backstage hallway was narrow, lined with crates and cables. He spotted Jimin at the end of it, near the dressing rooms, his reflection caught in a mirror under flickering lights. Hyung, Jungkook called out. Jimin froze. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't turn around. Don't do this here, he said quietly. I'm not doing anything, Jungkook said, stepping closer. You just what? Jimin snapped, spinning to face him. His eyes flashed, wet and sharp under the light. You just want to feel less guilty? You want me to tell you it's okay so you can sing love songs again without choking on them? Jungkook flinched. The words hit harder than he expected. That's not it is asterisk, Jungkook. Jimin cut him off, voice cracking. You walked away when I needed you most. You said it was better for the group, for the music, for your image. You said you couldn't afford distractions. Jungkook's breath hitched. And you think you weren't my everything? The hallway went quiet. The sound of the rain outside faded into a dull echo. Jimin's lips parted, but he didn't speak. His eyes glistened with something dangerous, anger, maybe, or heartbreak disguised as fury. Then why didn't you fight for it? He whispered. Jungkook took another step forward, closing the gap between them. Because I didn't think I deserved you. His voice shook, raw. Because I thought I'd ruin you. Jimin laughed, a small, bitter sound. You did anyway. For a long moment, they stood there, neither willing to move nor speak. The air was electric, charged with years of unspoken things. Jungkook's pulse pounded in his ears. He wanted to reach out, to grab Jimin's hand, to make him understand, but Jimin's eyes told him he already did. Jungkook's voice dropped lower. That song you sang during sound check, it wasn't just about love, was it? Jimin's gaze flickered. He looked away, wiping at his cheek roughly. No. It was about memory. About someone who keeps coming back every time I try to forget. The confession tore through the room like lightning. Jungkook's chest tightened, every part of him screaming to close the space between them. He reached out before he could stop himself, fingers brushing Jimin's wrist. Jimin didn't pull away. Not immediately. His skin was cold, damp from sweat, trembling under Jungkook's touch. Their eyes met again, and for the first time, there was no mask, no stage, no audience, just the ache of two people who had broken each other in silence. You still shake when you sing, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin's voice was barely a whisper. Because I still feel it. Jungkook's grip tightened slightly. Then let me feel it too. The space between them dissolved. The air was heavy with the smell of rain and stage dust, with the heat of something they'd both tried to bury. Jimin stepped forward, his breath brushing Jungkook's throat, but before anything more could happen, a sudden voice echoed from the doorway. Hey, are you two? They broke apart instantly. It was Taehyung, frozen mid-step, his eyes darting between them with a knowing look. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The silence that followed said everything. Jimin turned away first, his expression slipping back into calm professionalism. We're fine, he said coldly. Just talking about the set list. Taehyung's jaw tightened slightly, but he only nodded. Right. His tone was clipped, unreadable. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Jungkook exhaled, the tension in his body refusing to ease. Jimin wouldn't meet his gaze. You should go, Jimin said again, voice quieter now. Before someone else sees. Jungkook hesitated. I don't care if they do. Yes, you do, Jimin replied softly. And that's the problem. He stepped past Jungkook, brushing his shoulder lightly. The touch burned like a goodbye. Jungkook stayed in the empty hallway long after Jimin left, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above him. His reflection in the mirror looked hollow, eyes darker than he remembered. He turned toward the rain-soaked exit, jaw clenched, and whispered under his breath, as if Jimin could still hear him from somewhere down the hall, I'm done hiding. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant, a promise of something breaking soon. The air between them felt too dense to breathe. Jimin stood still, chest rising and falling in short, uneven breaths, as Jungkook waited. No pressure, no demand, just open, unbearably honest. Jimin hated honesty when it came from Jungkook. It stripped him down too easily. A moment passed. Then another. And then suddenly Jimin stepped back, one hand running through his damp hair as if trying to physically shake the moment off him. Why do you look at me like that? Jimin muttered, pacing again, like the walls were shrinking around him. Like what? Jungkook asked quietly, like you're expecting me to choose something, Jimin said, voice fraying. Like you're waiting for me to say something I'm not sure I'm ready to say. Jungkook watched him, eyes tracking every frantic step. I'm waiting for you to stop lying to yourself. Jimin froze mid-step, his jaw tensed. His fingers curled. The muscles in his back tightened beneath his shirt. Don't say things like that, he said quietly, dangerously. Why not? Jungkook pushed. It's true. Because you don't know what I'm dealing with, Jimin snapped. You don't know what's been happening inside my head lately. Then tell me, Jungkook replied, stepping forward. Jimin turned sharply. You think I haven't tried? You didn't try with me. Jimin inhaled sharply like he'd been stabbed, the tension cracked open between them, sharp and electric. Jungkook moved closer, slow and deliberate, rainwater still clinging to his hair, his clothes clinging to his skin. There was something raw in his eyes, something that made Jimin's throat go dry. You talk to everyone else, Jungkook whispered. You open up to the members. To the staff. Even to strangers. But not to me. Because you're the one I can't afford to fall apart in front of, Jimin shot back, voice rising despite himself. Because when I break in front of you, It means something. And I'm not ready for that. Jungkook's breath hitched, silence fell like a weight. Jimin's chest tightened as soon as the words left his mouth. Too honest. Too sharp. Too real. Jungkook's voice came out low, trembling with something he couldn't mask. Why does it mean something? Don't do this, Jimin whispered. Why? Jungkook repeated, stepping close enough that Jimin had to lift his chin to look at him. Does it mean something when it's me? Jimin's pulse thrashed wildly. His breath stuttered. His entire body felt like it was leaning toward Jungkook without his permission. Because you see too much, Jimin whispered. Because whenever I try to hide anything, you're already standing in front of the truth waiting for me to admit it. Jungkook swallowed hard, eyes locked on Jimin as though reading every flicker beneath the surface. And what is the truth? Jimin's lips parted. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Instead, he looked away, too fast, too guilty, like the truth had almost slipped out. Jungkook exhaled shakily. Jimin, look at me. Jimin didn't move. Jungkook stepped closer. His hand hovered near Jimin's jaw, not touching, but close enough that Jimin felt the heat of it. A shiver raced through him. You don't have to say the whole truth, Jungkook murmured. Just stop running from it. Jimin finally looked up, eyes bright with emotion he refused to name. And that was when everything snapped. Jimin pushed Jungkook hard enough to startle him, not enough to hurt. His breath came fast, almost angry, almost panicked. Why are you always pushing me, Jungkook? Why can't you just let things stay the way they are? Because they're not the way they are, Jungkook said, stepping forward as Jimin stepped back. They're a mess. A lie. A trap you built to keep yourself safe. Jimin's back hit the edge of the kitchen counter. He cursed under his breath. Jungkook didn't touch him. But he stood close, too close, eyes burning with a mixture of frustration, fear, desire, and something deeper, something protective. You think I don't notice when you stare at me longer than you should? Jungkook said quietly. Think I don't feel it when your breath stutters around me? Think I haven't seen how your hands shake after we fight? Jimin squeezed his eyes shut, breath trembling. Stop, he whispered, voice thin. No, Jungkook said again, desperation edging into his tone. Not this time. Jimin's eyes opened slowly, reluctantly, and Jungkook saw it, the truth unfiltered. Unmasked. Terrifying. Jungkook, Jimin whispered, the word fragile, trembling, almost breaking. I don't know how to handle the way you make me feel. Jungkook's breath caught. Jimin looked down, hands gripping the counter behind him as if grounding himself. I don't know how to want something that could ruin everything. The storm outside thundered at that exact moment, shaking the windows. Inside, another storm finally broke open. Jungkook stepped forward until he was inches away. Maybe wanting something isn't the problem, he whispered. Maybe pretending you don't is what's ruining you. Jimin's head lifted, eyes glassy with emotion. And this time, he didn't step back. For the first time, he didn't hide from the intensity between them. Didn't run from the truth. Didn't bury the fear. He simply breathed slowly, unevenly right there, in front of Jungkook. Letting himself feel everything, letting Jungkook see it all, and Jungkook, stunned and aching and relieved beyond words, whispered the softest confession into the charged air between them. Stay here tonight. Jimin didn't answer. He didn't need to, because he didn't move. He stayed. The silence after Jimin chose to stay wasn't peaceful at all. It crackled. It hummed. It stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Jungkook didn't move for a moment, afraid the slightest shift would shatter the fragile, electric stillness. Jimin stood by the counter, arms braced behind him, chest rising in quiet, shaky breaths. His eyes held 1,000 storms, each one fighting to break free. Are you sure? Jungkook's voice came out low, rough around the edges, like he was afraid of the answer. No, Jimin said honestly. But I'm still here. Those words hit harder than any confession. Jungkook exhaled, slow, disbelieving, almost shaken. He moved first, taking one careful step closer. Jimin didn't flinch this time, though his fingers curled tight around the countertop. You're shaking, Jungkook whispered, stopping just in front of him. So are you, Jimin murmured, forcing a breath that came out uneven. They were close enough now that the space between them felt charged and hot, like the air had thickened around their bodies. Jungkook lifted his hand, not to touch, just to hover near Jimin's jaw, an instinct he couldn't suppress. The warmth radiating from him made Jimin's breath stall. Jungkook's voice dropped, soft but burning. Tell me what you're afraid of. Jimin looked away, jaw clenching. Everything. Then tell me one thing, Jungkook urged. Just one. Jimin's throat bobbed as he swallowed. His voice came out thin, shaky. I'm afraid that if I let myself want this, I won't be able to stop. Jungkook closed his eyes for a moment, like the words physically hit him. When he opened them again, they were darker, gentler, and infinitely more vulnerable. What if I don't want you to stop? Jimin's breath caught like he'd been struck. His hand slipped from the counter and instinctively caught Jungkook's wrist, gripping tight, not pulling him closer, not pushing him away, just holding on like he needed something to anchor himself. Jungkook, Jimin whispered, voice raw. You don't understand how complicated this is. Then explain it, Jungkook said, inching closer. Their knees brushed, soft but electric. Jimin gasped quietly at the contact. Explain it to me instead of running from me. Jimin sucked in a shaky breath. If anyone finds out, they won't. You can't promise that. I can promise I won't let you deal with it alone. Jimin shook his head, frustrated. You're too young to make promises like that. And you're too scared to admit you want me to. Jimin froze. That was the line he wasn't ready to cross. Jungkook saw the panic flicker behind his eyes, then something else. Something deeper. Something that had been waiting in the dark for far too long. Jungkook's voice softened. Look at me. Jimin didn't want to. But he did, slowly, reluctantly, like gravity was dragging his gaze upward. Their eyes locked, something hot and dangerous and painfully honest coiled between them. You think I don't know what this is? Jungkook whispered. You think I didn't feel it every time you avoided my eyes? Every time you walked away too fast? Every time you held your breath when I got too close? Jimin's lips parted, breath shallow. Stop noticing everything. I can't, Jungkook whispered, stepping closer. Not with you. Jimin's composure cracked visibly. His grip on Jungkook's wrist loosened just enough for their fingers to brush. The touch sent a shiver crawling up Jungkook's spine. You're doing it again, Jimin said, voice almost trembling. You're pushing me. Because you're finally pushing back, Jungkook answered. Jimin inhaled sharply. The room felt small suddenly, the air too warm, too thick, too alive. Thunder rolled outside, shaking the windows. The lights flickered, almost on cue. Jimin whispered, You don't know what I've been holding in. Then tell me, Jungkook said, stepping even closer, practically breathing the same air. I can handle it. You can't, Jimin said, shaking his head. Not if it includes you. Jungkook froze for the first time tonight. He looked unsteady. Does it? He whispered. Include me? Jimin didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence was an answer. The truth was pressed into every breath, every tremble, every second he didn't walk away. Jungkook's hand finally touched Jimin's jaw, slow, careful, almost reverent. Jimin's breath hitched, his eyes fluttering shut for a moment as though the contact unraveled something he'd been trying to hold together. Please don't pretend anymore, Jungkook said, his thumb brushing Jimin's cheek. Not with me. Jimin opened his eyes, bright, emotional, terrified, wanting, and finally, he whispered the words that had been clawing at his throat for months. I don't know how to want you quietly. Jungkook's eyes widened, breath leaving him in a shaky exhale. Then don't, he whispered back. Jimin closed his eyes again, not in retreat, but in surrender. The air around them thickened, heavy and heated. Their foreheads nearly touched, breaths mingling, pulses racing. Jungkook's fingers curled gently behind Jimin's neck, drawing him closer, not claiming, not trapping, just asking. Jimin didn't pull away. He leaned in. Just enough to erase the distance. Just enough to choose the danger. Just enough to finally let himself fall. Outside, lightning split the sky. Inside, two people who had spent months running from the truth finally stopped running, not with a kiss, not with a confession shouted into the storm, not with anything dramatic or loud, but with breath, with closeness, with the softest, rawest truth hanging between them like a live wire. They wanted each other more deeply, more dangerously, more honestly than either had dared to admit. And tonight, they weren't hiding anymore. The rain was still misting against the city windows when Jungkook finally found Jimin again, this time not backstage, not in a hotel corridor filled with whispers, but on the quiet rooftop where everything between them had started to unravel. Jimin stood with his back turned, hair damp, shoulders stiff, as if bracing for whatever storm Jungkook still carried. "Hyung," Jungkook said softly. But even that one word cracked like something breaking inside him. Jimin didn't turn. "If you came to apologize again, I don't know if I can hear it." "It's not an apology." Jungkook walked closer, slow, careful, as though the air between them might shatter. "It's the last thing I have left to say." That got Jimin to turn. His eyes were tired, rimmed red, but clear, dangerously clear. "Then say it." Jungkook exhaled, shaking slightly. "I don't want to fight. I don't want to guess what you feel. I don't want to keep pretending I'm fine when you pull away like none of this ever mattered." His voice steadied. "I'm ending it." Jimin blinked. "Ending what?" "This." Jungkook motioned between them, his hand trembling. "This confusion. This fear. This stupid Cold War we keep slipping into. If you don't want me, fine. If all of this was just a moment you regret, fine." His throat tightened. "But I can't keep chasing a ghost." Jimin stepped forward quickly, voice breaking. "You think I don't want you? Then why did you walk away?" Jungkook whispered, "Because I was scared." Jimin's voice rose for the first time, raw enough to make Jungkook freeze. "You think you're the only one shaking? You think I didn't feel everything too much? You think I wasn't terrified that one wrong move would ruin us forever?" The rain began again, light, cold droplets tapping against metal and skin, but neither of them moved. Jungkook swallowed, the sound loud in the silence. "I needed you to say something. Anything." "I know," Jimin said, softer now. He reached out, just barely touching Jungkook's wrist. "And I should've. But you're overwhelming, Jungkook. Not in a bad way. Just, in a way that makes me lose all sense of self-control." Jungkook stared at him, breath caught. "So what now?" Jimin held his gaze with a steadiness that hadn't been there before. "Now, I stop running." The rooftop seemed to shrink around them, drawing them closer. Jungkook stepped toward him, inch by inch, until their foreheads touched, breath mingling, the world narrowing to the warmth between them. "Does this mean it's not over?" Jungkook whispered. Jimin laughed softly, shaky but honest. "It never was." A long silence settled, calm this time, full of something fragile but real. Jimin placed a hand against Jungkook's jaw, thumb tracing the tense line there. "Let's not destroy ourselves with assumptions again," Jimin murmured. "If something hurts you, tell me. If something scares you, tell me. Don't swallow it just to look strong." "And you?" Jungkook asked. "I'll stop disappearing when things get hard." Jimin's eyes softened, warm despite the cold. "And I'll stop pretending I don't feel everything you feel." Jungkook let out a breath that sounded like relief and exhaustion all at once. "Then, stay. I'm here," Jimin said simply. This time, when Jungkook pulled him into an embrace, Jimin didn't hesitate. He melted into it, clinging back with all the quiet desperation he had tried to hide for too long. The city noise faded. The rain softened. Their breathing synced like an old rhythm finally finding its way home. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was just real. When they finally pulled back, Jungkook brushed a strand of wet hair from Jimin's cheek and smiled, small, unguarded, the kind of smile he only wore for him. "So this is our ending?" Jimin asked softly. Jungkook shook his head. "No." He threaded their fingers together, grounding them both. "This is our beginning." And for the first time in a long time, neither of them ran.